Hello, welcome to our shir, Parshas Balak, Tavshin Pei Aleph. And Balak, as we all know, is one of the most unusual sedras in the Torah, is that it doesn't deal with Klal Yisrael in the Midbar and their travails and the things that happened to them, but with Bilam and Balak trying to Rahman al-Islam and give a klala to Klal Yisrael, which of course, as we know, boomeranged into a bracha. And Baruch Hashem, some of the things that Bilam said were so powerful that they actually became part of our davening. So I'd like to focus today on two psukim that are probably the most famous psukim in the parsha, and that is Hein Levadad Yishkain, they are a nation that dwells alone, which of course we know Klal Yisrael is a nation that dwells alone. We see the Vaser Yaakov Levadoi, this concept of Klal Yisrael's loneliness, so to speak, it has a good pedigree going back to Yaakov Avinu. And the other pasuk is Matoivu Olecha Yaakov Mishnosech Yisrael, which we begin our davening with. And I was wondering, why does it say Olecha Yaakov and Mishnosech Yisrael? What are we trying to say? Of course, it's very poetic. It's a mashal. It's a poetic, beautiful. It sounds nice, but what does it mean? And that's what I was thinking, that these two pasukim deal with relationships. Heinon Levadim Yishkain deals with the relationship of Klal Yisrael to Dumas Olam on a global level, on a national level. And Matov Olecha Yaakov Mishnosech Yisrael deals with Klal Yisrael and individuals, because as Rashi says, that what impressed Bilam is that their tents, the opening of the tent, didn't look into each other. There was a tznius, that each member of Klal Yisrael stayed in his own Dalet Amas. They weren't looking into other people's tents, so to speak. There was a tzanua of the Klal Yisrael, which so impressed Bilam, who unfortunately, as we know, was exactly the opposite in that area of tznius. So how do we understand these two psukim? I'd like to give a little bit of an insight that I had. I was listening, and something I recommend, as we know, the great Dr. Avram Yeshua Heschel Tursky, who I knew as a child growing up as a Reb Shia, the famous Talmud Chacham psychologist, who wrote over 50 books. We've quoted him before. And every week, Rabbi Ariel Shoshan, who's a Rav, the Choshev Rav in Scottsdale, Arizona, says over a little bit from his Sfarim Machshava. And he had one that's called Sticking with the Winners. And he makes a very brilliant insight. And that is that, to put in my own words, we know that parents often tear their hair out trying to figure out, why does their son or daughter hang out with bad friends? And they say, but you're a good kid. What are you doing with those kids? Why can't you go? There's so many other good kids in the class and you're busy with them. What's the reason for that? And the parents can never figure it out. And the kids themselves don't know the reason why it is that they're attracted to those type of friends. And he gives a tremendous insight. And what he said is, bad friends make people feel good. That when you have low self-esteem, and you're a person who doesn't feel good about yourself, you know how you feel better? You hang out with people less than you. So if you're somebody who gets in your 70s and 80s in a test, you would rather hang out with people who do it in their 70s than somebody who gets in their 90s. Because the people in their 90s, you're feeling like, I'm the lowest. Whereas the people under, you're feeling like the best. So therefore, you tend to hang out. If you talk a little bit during Shemoneh Esrei, and you know that you shouldn't, so you'll hang out with people who talk a lot during Shemoneh Esrei because it makes you feel good. So he says, in a perverse way, we bring ourselves down because our self-esteem is weak. So we feel better with those who are less than us than those who are better than us. And that is a tremendous Yetzer Hara. That is really a prime Yetzer Hara. The Rambam says in Hilchos Deis Halacha Vav, Hilchos Deis Perek Vav Halacha Aleph, the Rambam says that we are very, very much the people that we associate with. That's what makes us tick, is we want to be like everybody else around us. And therefore, says the Rambam, an interesting Rambam. The Rambam wasn't Hasidish. He says you should get close to a tzaddik. You should get close to somebody who will make a rosham on you in a positive way. I being with the tzaddik makes you feel like, why am I not a tzaddik like that tzaddik? And that's an avodah. Part of our avodah in Yiddishkeit is to try and make ourselves better. And the way to make ourselves better is to be together with people who are better than us, who we can aspire to, rather than our tendency to want to be to people who are less than us so we can feel good about ourselves. And he says that's ultimately what it says in Perek Daled, Mishnah Aleph. Reb Matzio ben Cheresh Omer, Reb Matzio ben Cheresh said, Havi zonav la'arayos, ba'alti roish l'shualim. Better to be a tail to lions than to be a head to foxes. Because when you're a tail to lions, you aspire to be a lion. When you're a tail to foxes, you're just going to be a fox. You're not going to go. And the Medrash Shmuel says that what does that mean? Because the lion, why? What are we talking about tails? It's a funny thing. And to be a tail to a lion, nalti roish l'shualim, better to be a head to shualim. What does that mean? He says because a lion holds its tail above its head. A lion is always looking to go higher, to be more, the king of the animals. He wants to do more. Whereas the fox holds his tail between his legs because he's looking to go less. And that's the mashal of the fox and the lion. So the lesson that we're teaching is we know that a person likes to hang around with those less than him and makes them feel good. But feeling good is not what it's all about. Being good, being better, that's what we have to do. That's what we're all about. And therefore we have to always aspire, as the Rambam says, to get close to those better than us and not to get to those who are less than us. I remember when I grew up as a child in Milwaukee, so there were people, the neighborhood where the shul was like a mid-class neighborhood. And there's always people who become very successful and they'll move out to the suburbs and they're going to move into a more fancy neighborhood and they're going to have a very, beautiful house and all that, and a beautiful lawn. They have that in the city. So I remember the Rebbe, at that time used to tell people, beg them, don't leave. Don't leave because you're going to be influenced by the people you're going to be now with. And they said, oh, Rebbe, I'm going to come back. I'll come for shul. It's only a 45-minute walk. I'll drive Friday afternoon, and then I'll drive back Motzei Shabbos. And And then the Rebbe would say, not going to work. You're going to be influenced by the people that you're going to. And sure enough, every single case. They started at the beginning coming, and they were loyal. And then one time they didn't feel so good, a little bit of a headache, a little bit of a cold. All of a sudden they didn't come one Shabbos, then they didn't come second Shabbos, and that was it. You didn't see them anymore. And they talk nebuch, because we are influenced by who we are around. So this is our nisayon. Our nisayon is to try not to fall into being a reish l'shu olam, but to always try to be a zonav la'royos, not to be a head to a foxes, but to be a tail to the lion who holds his tail above his head. And I think this is so beautifully what our pasuk is telling us, both these pasukim are telling us. On the national level, Am Levad Yishkain. The Rebbeinu Shalom Torah is constantly telling us, don't be like the Eretz Mitzrayim, don't be like the Canaan which you're going into. You have to be by yourself in order to maintain your integrity of who you are. Because if you're going to become too involved with the Mitzrayim, with the Canaan, it's teignisht. So Zok Bilam Am Levad Yishkain. You're going to be by yourselves, Ubagoyim Lo Yischashav. As we always say from Shlomo Kluger, he puts a question mark at the end. And he says, Bilam was giving advice to Balak, we failed to curse him, I'll give you different advice. Am Levad Yishkain, Ubagoyim Lo Yischashav. He changes the meaning, putting a question mark at the end. He says, are they going to be able to dwell alone and not be amongst Umasaylim? It's not going to work. They're not going to. They wouldn't want to be part of the world. They don't want to be one nation amongst hundreds in the UN. They want to be like everybody else. So you know what you do? You bring the Benos Mayav, and instead you try and be Makar of them. Then they're going to fall like bowling pins. That's going to be easy. The Kachava, and that's why right after the Bilam, what does it say? Yisrael B'shitim, that they went and they were Bezana. Because right after, because that was Bilam's idea, you can't curse them, Hashem won't let me, but we can go, Am Levad Yishkom, because it's very hard for them. By going on Yishchashav, can they be amongst themselves and not be amongst the Goyim? Not going to happen. Let's get the Benos Moab. And we mashal them, and it worked. Rahman al-Islam. So Torah is telling us, Am Levad Yishka, it's not the way. We got to be Am Levad Yishka like Yaakov Avinu. And we have to be able to do by Yibasar Yaakov Levad, we have to have the Kayach of Levad in order to maintain our integrity, to try and look up to the tzaddikim and not down, but to always look up and not look down. You know, they say the difference between Adam and a behema is an Adam looks up and a behemoth's head is down. Behema looks down. We have to be an Adam and look up. And that's Pshat. Matoivu Alecha Yaakov Mishnai Sech Yisrael. Yaakov started out on the lower madrega. He's Oyel Lecha and Oyel, and it's Yaakov. But where did Yaakov want to go? Yaakov was always going up. He wanted to go to Mishkan Secha Yisrael. Now he's going to be the Mishkan of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he's going to become Yisrael. So Yaakov wanted to go up from Yaakov to Yisrael. And therefore it says, Matoivu Oyelecha Yaakov Mishkan Secha Yisrael. From a tent, which is a temporary dwelling, to a Mishkan filled with Kedusha. And that's our aspiration, and that's our goal, to learn from this, to always want to become better, and to be together with people who are better, so we can aspire to be better, we can aspire to be like them, and not do the easy thing, which is to have bad friends because they make us feel better. Have a good Shabbos. Parshas Balak.